Well, how we met the Beatles was, the way I met George Harrison was he came along to the launch of the single, and that was done in Sydenham, in Surrey, in the back garden of a big house, and there was about 80 journalists and photographers came along. This was in August of 1969, and the single started to sell big time. When Prabhupada stayed in Bury Place, he would take over the first floor. His room was there and there was a bathroom attached. And that toilet and shower, generally speaking, was used by the ladies. But of course, when Prabhupada came, the ladies couldn't use that toilet and shower. So they had to go to this place called the Oasis swimming baths. So that particular day that he had just finished taking his shower, taking his massage, came onto the landing. I happened to be coming down from the office from upstairs, coming down the stairs. He looked up and saw me, and he was just in his gumcha with his, sacred thread, his Brahmin thread, wrapped around his ear. And he calls up and he says, "Who has passed a stubborn stool?" So after that, Prabhupada personalized everything. And so then, he called me in and he said, "I think now is a good time to ask our good friend, Mr. George Harrison, if he would like to help us find a bigger property." "Have you ever considered getting a name from Srila Prabhupada?" And he said, "Well, I already have a name." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, my name's Hare's son of Hare." And so then he said, "I haven't been to Bury Place for a while. What's happening over there?" I said, "I think we've become too popular. We've got so many nice boys and girls are coming to stay with us, and sometimes for big festivals, they have to sleep in the neighbor's roof." And then I said, "Oh, by the way, do you think you'd like to help us find a bigger place?" And you know what he said? He said, "I would be honored. I'd be very much honored." She had bought this place with the idea to turn it into a nursing home, a high-class nursing home. But some of the backers, they decided that it was too much of a risk. When I was calling George, I was telling him the location and the price and so on and so forth. And he said, "I really like this place." And I said, "Well, when would you like to come out?" He said, "Actually, I can't. I'm going to Los Angeles, we're having a meeting, so I'll be gone for 6 months." He said, "But don't worry, I completely trust your judgment." He said, "Don't worry, we're going to get this place. On one condition, that we don't pay a penny above the asking price." Well, Mrs. Ruffles, being an Aberdonian Scots lady, had removed all of the heating oil and removed all of the coal from the coal cellar. So that time, because it was, end of May, June, it wasn't that warm, and we couldn't afford to heat the place. But it took us also quite a time to get into some of these rooms because she'd removed all the brass doorknobs. And she'd also removed the door knocker from the front door. And all the pelmets and anything movable, anything that she could, extract from the house, she extracted. The other thing is that Prabhupada had also involved me in shipping the deities who became Radha Gokulananda in 1972. Just very casually he said, "If you like, there's a set of Radha Krishna deities lying in Delhi." So he had an amazing vision. I didn't have that vision, but at least I wanted to, please him by bringing those deities from Delhi here. And so we did that, and then they went upstairs and they sat in the sewing room, Radhalaneshwar's sewing room, for a whole year. So when Prabhupada arrived here, he said, "Do we still have those deities that you brought from Delhi?" I said, "Yes, Prabhupada, sitting in the sewing room in Bury Place." All right, we will install them here. And of course they were installed in Janmashtami 1973.
So when I came here from the outside, It looked like a very expensive pop star's residence. However, when I came in, I saw that the plaster was falling off the walls. Some of the rooms were filled with cobwebs. There was no carpet, absolutely no furniture of any kind, no hot water, and it was just a surprise to me how people could live like this. At that time, in November 1977, after Prabhupada passed away, the mood was at first great shock. I don't think that you can ever prepare yourself for the death of a loved one, particularly of the spiritual master, even though we term it in a different way, Prabhupada's disappearance, he's passing on, etc. I think his absence was a very palpable a gaping hole in our lives for many, many years. So there was a resolution and a rededication, a recommitment, that even in Prabhupada's physical absence, we would have to keep his movement going, because it was his movement. Bhaktivedanta Manor wasn't ours, it was his. It was Bhaktivedanta Manor. And for Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, we had to keep it going. That's how we positioned ourselves as his disciples. We were his servants. So we gave our youth, our young life to him so that he would do all the things that he wanted to do through us. Today's devotee, who lives at Bhaktivedanta Manor, has never had it as easy in the history of Bhaktivedanta Manor as they do today. We have a solid, dependable financial foundation coming from the Indian community, whereas previously it was very much hand to mouth. The 40th anniversary of Bhaktivedanta Manor means to me that we have made it through the most challenging times. We've made it through financially challenging times, politically challenging times. We've made it through spiritually, theological challenging times. And these difficulties that the manor has weathered, I think, have been very proving for us. That having gone through those, we will know how to deal in the next 40 years. So I'm excited about the 40th anniversary, but I would call upon everybody to please take part in the next 40 years. Because if you think that the early days was back in 1973, you ain't seen nothing yet. The early days is 2013. There's so much more to come. So please join us and be part of that exciting future that is Bhaktivedanta Manor the next 40 years.
While studying in London, in the universities, I would visit the Bury Place Temple in 1975, 76, 77, in that period. And every Wednesday afternoon I would be at the temple and associating with the devotees. In fact, I was the martial arts teacher for the devotees at Bury Place, training them because they had some security problems at that time. And I would go and also cook for the deities. They were short-staffed, so along with a variety of other devotees that were there, I would cook. And in 1977, when Prabhupada came on Janmashtami Day, I was the only person who was there because they closed the temple down. Everyone was at the manor, but I officially greeted Prabhupada, met him there. I managed to even be next to him when he was taking darshan of Radhalandan Ishwara. Bhavananda Prabhu and Tamal Krishna Maharaj, who were next to him, obviously looking after him. They took off his socks. As I was standing there, of course, I managed to hold on to the socks. My only regret is that I ran after them when Prabhupada was leaving to give back Prabhupada's socks. To have freedom to worship here, to have the road built was tremendous. But to have an actual facility and something which is 2,000 square meters, a facility that we really needed, and to have the planning permission approved for that, I believe was a second miracle here at Bhaktivedanta Manor, because it will change the way we do things. We're hoping that the next generations will be able to build on what we have put together here at Bhaktivedanta Manor.
Even from the first days that I was here, it was clear that there was an issue. I remember discussing with Mukunda Maharaj, who was looking after the communications at that time, that there were already kind of some opposition from the village to the presence of the temple. Things did bubble along, and there was an actual enforcement action taken against the manor in 79, which was defended by Vichitavirya. So there was one activity after another, whether it was lobbying at the council offices, we would go to the party conferences in Blackpool or Brighton, wherever people would listen to us. But at a certain point there was the actual decision that the temple must close on the 16th of March 1994. Together we knew we had to take some action, and we were together planning a big demo in London. We were arguing back and forth in terms of what would be the most effective, and I was feeling we're not getting anywhere with this, where time is pressing. So I did make the stand that the one date that matters is the 16th of March, and if we're going to do it, we're going to march on that day. It was a Wednesday, midweek, but it's the only day that matters, so we have to focus all our energies on that. And to give everyone credit, the way the community pulled together to focus on that day and bring coaches from all over the country. And I understand from the police they counted 37,000 people marching in London. Now, there was a turning point in between, and that turning point was based on our plans to build a new road. The idea for the new road actually was voiced by Vichitavirya Prabhu in 1980. And I remember walking the path of that route and saying, this is what we must do. We must bypass the village and bring in the road from Hillfield Lane. When the enforcement action came up, we still believed in that road, and we were touting and promoting that road from the very beginning. But we couldn't get the 2 plots of land that we needed. We could get one, but not the second. However, with help from some of our friends who are connected to St. Bart's Hospital, who own part of the land, in November 1993, we managed to get the second piece of land. And I remember presenting that to Prabhupada downstairs and feeling that, Prabhupada, the campaign is won. Now we have this land. There's no chance that we will lose. And that was a particularly emotional moment for me. So although we had the deadline looming in March, I was aware that now we had the land, we'd put in the application for the road afresh. It hadn't been approved, but we knew that it's only a matter of time. Then the question was, could we keep the temple open all the way through until the road was built? And that became a cat and mouse thing with the council. But we took the decision that not for one day would we close the temple. And actually it transpired that became the fact. In May 96, there was a change of governance at Hartsmere. The Labour group got in control. They had always said they would support the temple and they would grant the road. So the day after they took power, a meeting was arranged at Hartsmere offices. While we were meeting, it was put out on ITV, local television news, that this meeting was happening and there would probably be a result from it. The government then decided to issue their decision on the inquiry. While we were meeting in Hartsmere, we got a call from the temple saying a fax has just come through from the Department of the Environment. And we asked, what do you think it says? And the poor devotee, trying to read through these reams of paper, said, I think they're granting it. So we said, okay, don't say anything. We rushed back and looked at it, and sure enough, they were granting the road. But we still had to build it, because we weren't allowed to operate public worship or festivals until the road was built. It was only 3 months away from Janmashtami. And what had to be done to build a half-mile road, through new land, and also to make changes on the A41 trunk road, new traffic lights, all had to be in place before Janmashtami. Totally impossible. And somehow it happened. The day before Janmashtami, the council came and said, all right, you've done the A41, you've done the road, you've done the hedgehog tunnels underneath the road, you've done all that, but you haven't got the chippings on top. And we can't say that the road is finished until you get the chippings. So we said, come back at 5 o'clock. And somewhere we got chippings thrown on the road. They came back at 5 o'clock and said, it's done, you can have your festival tomorrow. It was that close. I think the heyday for the manor is still ahead. I look back at that magical moment I walked in and think that was just fantastic. I think of the days of the campaign when we were all united, working for a single cause, and those were spectacular days. They were, the most powerfully Krishna conscious days of my life. But the heyday for the manor is still in the years to come. For me, returning here time after time and just seeing how beautifully the place has developed, seeing the scope of its programs and the devotees coming and enjoying it, it really kind of lifts my heart, and I know that it's only just beginning.
भूत्वादीनगणे सतो